Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture. And before I introduce my guest, I do want to remind everybody there is a bunch of links up above, including my guest's website, so go check that out if you're interested in anything she does. And I'm sure we're going to talk about a bunch of it, as well as there is a Buy Me a Coffee. You know, obviously, this is a fan-supported show at the moment, and I say at the moment, I can't dive too much into the details, everybody. So obviously, buy me a coffee because it goes a long way. And so obviously, my guest, as you could read and probably see out there, is Sara Richard,
Hello.
who has worked on several IDW books and a few other comics. And you're known for My Little Pony, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles you worked on, and a few others. So welcome to the show, because this is exciting.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm really stoked.
Yeah, so obviously I sort of tip my hat where you've done a lot of work for IDW. My Little Pony is sort of up front and center, but I am curious how you got into comics before we get into the IDW and really into all that stuff, because it is super interesting how people get into it.
Yeah, totally. I guess it kind of started. I worked at Hasbro for a little bit as a toy sculptor, and I was kind of in-house doing that, sort of like an in-house kind of freelance sort of thing. But then I kind of started doing illustrations, and then I eventually kind of got into a free comic book day with Double Midnight Comics, which is my local comic store. And that's where I met my rep from Comic Art House. So he helped me kind of start getting into conventions, and through that, by just working my ass off, eventually I bugged IDW enough to let me do something, which was like I think it was Derpy and Pinkie Pie. I like just a way off model little sketch that I did. I'm like, see, I draw pony good. And then eventually, you know, well, Double Midnight let me do some retail exclusives, and that still has to go through IDW, and that kind of got my foot in the door there. So from there, it kind of took off, and I've just been really excited, you know, through conventions and meeting all these editors and stuff to kind of just build from that. So yeah, I think that's like the kind of nutshell version of it.
And obviously, we're going to talk about some of this stuff. I got a bunch of pictures, so hopefully IDW won't sue me for some of these pictures to
For you.
talk about. And I really don't want to step on IDW or have Applejack coming after me. It was only once. It was only once it happened. I want to make that crystal clear. But before we dive into some of your covers and talk really about My Little Pony, what actually makes a good comic cover? Because you've been doing this forever, almost 10 years almost at this point.
Yeah.
And obviously, I've asked, David Nakayama this question. I've asked Keith Garvey this question. I've asked Ralph Tedesco this question from Zenoscope. And I've asked a lot of other people as well. And I am super curious because we're going to be talking a lot about your cover work. And I am really curious because everybody has a different idea of what makes a good cover. But when I walk into a comic shop, on the wall, I could spot out the first 5 covers I want from a mile out very easily. And it has nothing to do with price.
Right.
Price is a secondary thing. So I'm curious what makes a good cover from you building it out and even just on the wall.
Yeah, actually that right there is exactly kind of what I try to think of. Like when somebody walks into a comic store, I want to design a comic that stands out. So that's going to really rely heavily on a composition that really works and isn't too busy. And my style gets kind of busy. So it's been really hard for me to learn over the years on how to kind of tie that back a little bit. But yeah, something that can read from across the room, I think is like the #1 important thing for a cover anyway. Also, like for me personally, I kind of draw what I would want to buy, I guess. I really like, I guess my style kind of started with like Japanese ink drawings and how I really got into that. And those compositions and how hard it is to take so few things and make it work and not seem like you just phoned it in on a cover and was like, oh, I did this in 10 minutes, whatever. But it's like something that's really thought out. You know, you got your negative space, foreground, middle ground, background, all the art school stuff that's been jammed into my head. I try to kind of like put that into each cover, like color scheme. Yeah, and then for me personally, I really like a cover that seems really simple, but then has like little hidden details in it. So it's kind of like a treat when you get a cover and you look at it again and go, oh wow, I didn't even notice this weird little skull or something down in the corner that's worked in there. But But yeah, I mean, I guess just, yeah, something that reads well and I guess doesn't spoil the story inside, which I have done accidentally, not accidentally in the past and got yelled at for it.
And every once in a while, when I go to a con, and I haven't been to a con in a while, but I get a commission, and I get usually what I want
Yeah.
to see on it. And I love good girl art. I'm not going to pretend, and I like things that are very playful. And I'm not a big nudity guy, but I like things that are a little bit suggestive and playful. And those are the covers that I like a lot. I also like things that are just brightly colored and saturated. I don't like dark covers. I really like neon type covers. If that makes any sense to anybody. Yeah. Where I want a color that isn't realistic and that is really hard in the real world. Very much My Little Pony is like that in a lot of ways, where it's pinks and like pastel pinks and all that stuff. And so that's something that I like. And then even going further into that, how important is covers? Because that's another thing. And I know it's sort of a little backwards if I ask these questions a little bit, but obviously covers matter in which that they do sell the book. And as a cover artist, that's the first thing somebody's going to see with it. And I'm a cover collector beyond a comic reader. I'm a comic reader second, and I like collecting covers because I view it as art. Yeah. And so how important is it that somebody just sees something and also gets an idea of what the book's going to be a little bit as well?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that as well, like collectors who just go in and they know they're going to get the story with like the regular cover, but then to have that art aspect, like you can make your own little gallery while still having a readable piece of literature, so it's really cool to have been able to do all these like variant covers. I love that IDW does so many because it gives new artists a chance to kind of get their foot in the door, for sure. Two, it's just really cool to see everybody's sort of take on all these characters, and IDW is really, really open to letting everybody kind of, to a point, you guys still stay on model enough, but like it's kind of like when you go to Artist Alley, like in a convention, and you can see everybody's different take on these characters that you really like. And it's really cool to see like your favorite character drawn in somebody's crazy style, spooky style, or like a super realistic style. Like it's just really cool to have that celebrated in a cover and having that like kind of become a collector's thing and be taken seriously. And it's just, published. It's awesome. It's really, really cool. I don't know. I love them.
And then obviously, since we're on this, we should probably dive into it. And I want to talk about My Little Pony. And you worked on a bunch of stuff. And the ones that I want to talk about, or at least start with, is the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic series. And so obviously you did a lot of cover work for this. And so what was it like, coming into My Little Pony? Because I don't know how many people actually know. My Little Pony's been around for almost 50 years. Yeah. I think almost 40 at this point, not 50. I think it came out in the 80s. And I'm getting 9 years ahead of ourselves here, clearly. But
what is time anymore?
COVID has done something to me, clearly. But what was that like coming into this? Because you obviously sort of submitted something, came into it, did a basic drawing, and then one thing sort of started leading into another. And what was that like? Because it is a big intellectual piece of property.
Yeah, definitely. Terrifying a little bit, just because there's very, very, very passionate fans, and it's like, I don't want to piss anybody off, but it was really cool. It was also really cool to see how much these characters mean to people, and like I got to see that through conventions, and like My Little Pony has allowed me to go to conventions all over the world, and that is still mind-boggling. Like to meet fans in Denmark and Norway, and then meet fans in Scotland, like that's
so what is that like? Because
it was awesome. I mean, everybody loves them the same, Just different accents.
So that's a good question to somebody, but it's kind of crazy to think that obviously I think My Little Pony is an American show, but the fact that people from the UK and Scotland and all over the place watch it and enjoy it, and you're brought in, and then people want to see you, and then they know that you did it, and then they want commissions. I mean, it's kind of crazy that this is beyond now just a comic. And that it's also generational, where you have somebody who's 10 years old into it, and then you have somebody like me who's 28 who's enjoying it just the same way in a different way.
Yeah.
And so what is that like, knowing that, hey, I worked on this? Because it's so bizarre to some degree. And I use that word very, very nicely, because it's nobody, if you told me 15 years ago that this would have been a thing, I don't think anybody would have believed it.
Yeah. But that's life, man. I mean, there's some things like, man, I was just telling my friend the other day, like I sang karaoke with the girl who played Jem like a few years ago. I never thought I'd do that. If you told little baby Sarah that was gonna happen, she'd be like, get out of here. But you know, like crazy shit happens, you know, and the way that they revamped My Little Pony, I feel like just really spoke to people at kind of like a real soul level, you know, like no matter what age you are, if you are relating to, you know, Twilight or Rainbow Dash or sorry, excuse me, Rainbow Dash or Pinkie Pie, like that is just like that's who you relate to, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you know, as long as you're just respectful about everything and cool with it. But yeah, it's really cool to see like how many people it's affected and really helped too. Like there's a lot of people I've met at conventions who were very very nervous and wouldn't be in a big crowd except for fans of My Little Pony, and it was just a really welcoming kind of group of people, and it was really cool to see, and it's really great that that show was able to, you know, do that for people. So I love it. I think it's really cool how it's affected people. So.
And then I want to get into some of this cover stuff, and I'm not too sure how much in order this is, and you might know better than me, but there's a bunch of covers out there, so I'm just gonna start showing them when I talk about it. So there's this.
Oh yeah, that's an old one. Yeah.
I love this cover because obviously, you know, it's very almost painted.
It is painted. Yeah.
And it's that idea where you got that glitter and the sparkles, but I don't think that it's a glitter cover, for lack of a better word.
Cool. Yeah, and that's what I kind of like to go for. Like I really like Art Nouveau and Art Deco, and I think those styles are super pretty, but not like glitter sparkles, you know. So it's like it still makes it look elegant, but like not too glittery in your face. Oh God, I got glitter in my eye kind of thing. So.
And also what I like about this cover, I'm gonna throw it back up there for 1 second, is that it's also very different because this came out early on when you came to W. And at that time, there wasn't really people painting this. A lot of people were doing stuff digitally, or they were using, you know, more corporate markers, or it wasn't as, you know, I guess painted is the right word, or using paints and, you know, acrylic. And so what was this like? Because it was providing a different style. And I know a bunch of your work does that as well. But it's kind of nice when you get different art in there, because it's just something that's saying, oh, this is a different cover, and oh, I want to check it out now.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like, cause I painted most covers up until I think like into the 80s, and then I started doing digital just because I was able to get things done quicker, and I was able to travel and still meet deadlines. But for a long time, it was just traditional. Like every cover I did was painted. And that's just like, I always felt most comfortable slinging acrylic paint and watercolor around. So, but yeah, it also really helped kind of distinguish my style. Like it, you know, had a lot of imperfections, and sometimes there is cat hair that's in the scan and that just ends up on a cover. But I know like Andy does a lot of traditional stuff too. So like there's definitely still traditional throughout the comics for sure. But yeah, that was kind of like my jam, was doing everything the super hard way.
This is another one that's also similar to it. This one is, you know, an exclusive. Obviously, it's for a comic shop. And so obviously this is that. And I like this one because, you know, it's not, and I say this, obviously it's a hell of a lot better than what I could do, but it has a little bit of imperfection to it. And it's not, you know, completely, you know, digitalized, 100% saturated. And that's what makes this cover really cool. Not to mention that you're getting a whole bunch of different colors that you really can't get digitally, or to get it digitally is so hard to get this digitally.
Yeah.
And so what was this like? Because this is a lot of fun, and obviously this was for a particular comic shop and a retailer, and so obviously it is very exclusive, and I'm an exclusive guy.
Yeah. Yeah, this was the very first cover I did, and it was one of the retail incentives for Double Midnight Comics. And those guys, like, owe a lot of my career to for letting me do their retail incentives. And this one right here, I'm a huge art history nerd, so there's a ton of art history. My favorite artists thrown in there, like there's Klimt, there's like Macintosh, like the Glasgow Macintosh, Flowers, Charles Rennie Macintosh, and Margaret MacDonald Macintosh are two of my favorite artists. So the little swoop that's like to the right of Twilight is those roses are really important to me. And then, yeah, there's like some Dali clocks in there, Picasso, and color block stuff, which I don't know why I put color blocks in there because I don't like color blocks, but just as an art nerd. But it was really cool. I wanted to go all out with my first cover, and I was really trying to impress IDW too, and so yeah, this cover was.
And also, what's really cool about this cover is that the cover is done painting, but then the logo of My Little Pony and even the Twilight Sparkle is obviously done almost like an overlay on it.
Yeah.
And it gives it a really cool thing because it adds some dimension to it.
Cool, yeah.
At the same time, and so there's a lot of cool stuff going on with it, and it adds a whole different level of eye trickery to it, for lack of a better word here. And whether that was intentional or not, I'm not sure. But
nope, I had no idea what I was doing. This is where I learned how to plan things out where logos go, because it definitely cuts off Twilight's horn. So that's something I wish I could redo. But like, there are some covers where they've kind of cut out a little bit in the logo, but it was more, it should have been me kind of planning it out beforehand, but it worked out okay. So
and then showing another one, because this is another one that's just crazy, and it goes very well with if you put that first cover I showed, and I'll show you in a second what I mean by this, is that so this one's going up, everybody, and this one's going down, and if you put them next to each other, or if you put it sort of diagonal with each other, you have them like almost polar opposites in a lot of ways, and so it's a very cool, and this is another, I think, Double Midnight cover as well. So what was this one like? Because it is very similar to that one, but obviously I think it's Rainbow Dash, and we got a lot more fun stuff happening and got that almost comic-esque feel to it.
Yeah, totally. I love trying to put like crazy movement in the covers too, to really keep it interesting. So there's a few covers later on that I made into sets where they complement each other if you collect all the covers together. But this one here, I just thought it would be really cool if Rainbow Dash was racing a peregrine falcon. So that just kind of worked out with the Luna one, with her going up and them going down. But yeah, I don't know. It was just an idea I kind of had when I was planning out all the micro series covers. So that one stuck with me for Rainbow Dash.
And it's just fun because also the cool thing about this is that all this stuff was Double Midnight. So it can only be got at Double Midnight. So the people who got your first one, the next month they're like, oh, I know that style. And then, well, now they're getting very accustomed to it. And obviously this is a very different style than what was on the shelves, as I was stating at the time. And so it's very cool because now you're almost building a fan base out of Double Midnight with this style, because very few people do anything remotely close to this.
Thanks. Well, I'm a fan of Double Midnight, so that would be cool if it switched. They're awesome. They're the best.
And then they continue talking about this stuff, and I think I'm right on this one, is that this might not be the exact set you were talking about, but there's this one and this one. And I don't know how to do a double layout, okay? So everybody's going to have to bear with me shifting between them, but obviously these two complement each other, and it's very cool. It's very stamp-esque, for lack of a better word. I am not a stamp collector, but obviously I appreciate it because comic books, stamp collecting, postcards, they're all very similar cousins. And so what was this like? Because obviously, very cool with Jetpack and Larry's, comic stuff, and complement each other, and really cool just playing around with this.
Thanks. Yeah, 2 more local comic shops to me in New Hampshire, and yeah, I wanted to do. I think this might have been like the first like set that I wanted to do, to have them. It's like for collectors, like I wanted to make something where, cool, if you get one, it's fun for you to go find the other one, and it's sends you to both of the comic shops as well. So it was kind of a, how do I get people to go between these local comic shops and make a set? So, but plus it's like pound cake and pumpkin cake. They just go together, and it would be weird if they were disjointed. So I wanted to kind of keep it all together, and then also give like the boy the pink and the girl the blue, and it's just like the color schemes make me really happy. Like orange and blue and yellow are great, and then just like something about brown and pink is very classy for me. So
and also what I like about this is that they are in different poses. So it's not the same cover, just different color oriented. They're both different, a little bit, where obviously we have pumpkin cake, with pumpkin cake's, hoof in the mouth, and
Yeah.
then we have obviously pound cake blowing bubbles. And it's
Mhm.
kind of cool because they're very similar. We could tell they're both playing with bubbles to some degree and popping it, but they're doing a slightly different reactions, and they're also playful, and they're
Mhm.
very childish in both of these images, which is nice too to see. And so that's something that I really like about these, and I'm probably gonna go find them on eBay. So
Good luck, man. I don't even know if I have my comps of those still. They might be like I try to keep one of everything in this like little container at my parents' house, like in a back closet. I just keeps me from messing with it too much. So hopefully everything's pristine back there for the library in the future.
and then I want to jump to another cover, and it's this one because this
Yeah.
one is also just very inviting. And this one is sort of just, I love the wording in it. I love the fact that, Pinkie Pie is just absolutely adorable in this. I
Oh,
think it's Pinkie Pie, right? It's been a while since
oh
this.
yeah. I think that one's Cadence actually, because it's Cadence and Shining Armor, so they wanted to do like their own little story. So
See. Even I get wrong sometimes. But
oh, man.
I love the feather in it, and I
Oh,
also love the background because that's also what's really cool about this one versus the others that you've done that I've shown so far is that this one is so background oriented, and it sets the mood. Where you look at this cover and it's summertime. It's clear to me. It's a very peaceful. It's a very friendly outdoor type cover, and that's something that I think is very cool about this cover that it hasn't been shown in the others because while obviously the ponies are front and center, it's the entire image is very very cool with that. And so what was this like? Because it's very much the background is very much a character in this cover.
yeah. This was another one where it's like the stories about Cadence and Shining Armor and like little Twilight, and it's like trying not to give anything away. Like I don't think this actually happens in the story, but it's like that time period, and like he wants to ask her out, and it's just trying to keep that silly like juvenile nervousness of like, oh my God, will she or won't she say yes? But yeah, and just to keep it like friendly and cute and yeah, the background too, like the clouds, that's when I was like really going as like art deco as I could with the swirls. Since then I've kind of pulled it back a little bit and made it a little bit more just suggested instead of just hard swirls everywhere like that. But yeah, I just like a good cover also has good character interaction too. And you have the foreground with Cadence and Twilight, and you've got the background with Shining Armor doing his own thing there, and just to have everything work together. I'm really happy how that one came out. Except there's no butt for Shining Armor behind the tree. He just kind of comes out of the tree, which he's a cartoon, so he can do that, I guess.
And also another thing that I like about this cover is the fact that the logo of My Little Pony's up there.
Yeah.
And that, I think the logo slightly changed where this logo has a little bit more purple in it, but it also pops off the green. And I'm not a color theorist by any stretch of the imagination. I was not an art major, but I understand that certain colors go together.
You know what you like, so.
And it pops it off a little bit, and it's very cool. And I'm sure at this point you were figuring out where logos were going to go. So obviously a little more planning on this one.
Yeah, it's really hard too because it's like I was trying to also sell the original covers too. So it's like I didn't want to just leave it a big blank spot up there. I wanted to make like an actual piece of art too. So it's like I can put something up there that's not going to affect the overall story of the cover, but still make the logo less virgin cover, I guess. The actual original painted on illustration board acrylic thing still be a finished piece. So it's like learning on what you can have hidden just under there, but make the original kind of like special as well, I guess. So.
And I think that that's something that's also very important to understand is that, there's the comic cover, and then obviously, some companies do versions of these books as well, which is a whole different ball game in of itself, where it's almost like becomes like a cover D or a cover F, and then also there's original stuff, and then also some artists, have original black and white stuff as well, and obviously, selling that stuff or keeping that stuff or framing that stuff, and obviously everybody has different things they want to do with their art. per se, or some people even, IDW or some companies say, hey, we want to take the original and we want to create an entire book, an art book out of it. And then they want the original cover along with, the regular with a virgin cover that was never released. And so obviously there's a lot of different things that could happen. And so being even aware of that, and I think a lot of people in comics don't even understand that, who collected, don't understand there's a lot more that goes into cover making than what I see when I go to the comic shop and pay $5 for my comic.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like IDW did do that with the big art books too. So if I did this cover with nothing there, it'd make for a really boring page in an art book where it was more showcasing the art instead of like, this is a functional cover. So you want to put something up in there that can be covered, but also, creates like a complete illustration as well too.
And then there's also people who are just crazy and they want something there because they're going to spend big money on this stuff. I'm one of those people that when I see certain comic art and that, if I can afford it, I'm willing to spend big money, and people in comics have money.
There you go. Yeah.
It's true. It's comic fans have money, and it's a crazy thing where they won't go on vacation to Hawaii, but they'll go drop $3,500 on a piece of art.
Yeah,
and I know people who have done.
Mine goes on vacation.
So having said that, talking about another cover, and it's right here, this one, and this one is I think one of your first dark ones in a lot. It's like the going down the dark hole at this point. And again, I'm being very selective of which ones I picked, going through about I think like 90 of them that you did. And so this is clearly still painted, still fun, still that acrylic, pastel look, but we also have a gigantic creature going after a tiny little cute pony.
Yeah, I really love like juxtapositions of like cute, but then like creepy nightmare fuel as well in the same thing, and like trying to find that. What's that?
This cover is very down the middle where you can draw a line. Where it's weird. It's a weird cover. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I usually try to like blend things and mesh things a little bit more, but I really wanted this to have like, as Pinkie Pie is very like, she is who she is. I wanted this cover to be exactly what it is, just like cute pony, line, horrible dark nightmares behind her, but they might not be mean. I like that with the maybe.
Oh yeah, this is totally her friend. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, she could probably make friends out of them anyway. So, but yeah, it was kind of cool to see what IDW would let me do, spooky and dark wise, but still keep it My Little Pony, which they kind of were like cool with a lot of the covers that have like hidden horse skulls and spiders and bats and stuff in it. But yeah, like I just wanted to play with the obliviousness of Pinkie Pie, and it's kind of the idea I came up with, I guess.
And what is that even like for you, though, to get to experiment a little bit? Because obviously this is very much outside of everything that I showed, where at this point you didn't do really a dark cover.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of fun covers, and obviously My Little Pony's a fun comic. I mean, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that. There are real consequences and there are real lessons in My Little Pony, and in the books, and obviously in the show, and in the other things that's produced out of it. But to get to even experiment as an artist and say, hey, I got this idea, and it'd be cool with you doing the idea. I mean, it's obviously, it must be nice to that effect. We're like, hey, we trust you as an artist, and we're willing to take a little bit of a risk. Yeah,
it's always awesome when they let you do that. And I feel like I do my best work when I'm given kind of a little bit of freedom. Like I try to keep within the parameters, but it's nice when an editor is just like, we know what you do. Don't mess up. Don't make us regret it. But like, have fun and let's see what comes out. Because there's always changes at the end too. So an editor can always look at that and be like, no. But nice to see it, But yeah, I think too, like My Little Pony, I think on the surface looks like a really cutesy kind of show, but there are like adventures that they go on that have real consequences. There are scary things that happen, and it's really cool to have that duality like this, to have something that seems cute, but then has like some real scary stuff. Like I grew up on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and like Stinky Cheese Man and all these like really, I did like Batman, like originally animated Batman was dark as hell. And it's like, I think kids love dark spooky, scary stuff, you know? And now everything's just so overly pastel. Like, I love me some pastels, but, you know, like, throwing some dark shadow purples in there and stuff, and it's
Oh man, you haven't watched enough anime and all these kids. I'm 28, so I shouldn't be talking. I talk like I'm 50.
I feel 50, so.
I grew up watching 80s, 70s, and 80s anime and watching 90s anime, and I was a 90s anime kid watching things that I wasn't supposed to be watching.
Yeah, me too.
I did that all right, but I was watching things that were dark. And obviously that's how I grew up, and I still watch a lot of stuff that's dark. And so I just think the new generation needs a little darkness in their life.
Yeah.
And, I could say a lot of things about that, but I'll get you and me both canceled if I start speaking. So,
well, it's like, I think, you know, like kids too, it doesn't have to be like dark for dark's sake too. It can be kind of like a darker palette and seem dark and spooky on the surface, but then like the more you get into it, it's like, oh, this, you can still learn from some of these horror stories or some of these like starting out dark. You know, I don't know. I've always wanted to do a story about this horribly disfigured ghost girl who's actually super nice, and she's like, I can't help I look this way. I just am mangled, and it's like, yeah, that'll be really dark and scary, but she's gonna be super sweet. So
she's not going to be what, Lisa Trevor from Resident Evil?
Oh,
I think I got the name right, which said, just really bad joke.
Oh, right over my head. I did not get that reference.
Really, really bad joke. But anyway, I probably got the last name wrong, but I think a bunch of people know when they see this, they're going to be like, oh, that's cool. And then obviously this cover is the opposite of background, where this is almost like a sketch commission cover in a lot of ways, where obviously blank covers are a big deal. And I like blank covers because, as I stated before, I love getting commissions at cons, whether somebody's doing a small commission, a little stinger, you know, or doing, you know, a big, you know, bust type, you know, character on it. And this very much is like that, where white background, and well, this is something that if I went up to your table, I'm like, hey, do something wild and sort of out of this world with My Little Pony. I sort of expected maybe do something like Kingdom of Hearts Nightmarish from you know, Kingdom Hearts 3, and those characters that are sort of morphing. That's what this reminds me of.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this is another one of those ones where I wanted to create something that if this was on a shelf, your eye would be drawn to like this. I think stark white covers draw my eye more than like some of the darker, more saturated ones. And I wanted something that was just a really clean silhouette too. That kind of framed the logo so that your eye is like drawn into the logo. And also because she is just so dark, like I thought it'd be kind of cool to juxtapose that with like a completely white blank cover, you know, and that she's almost like coming out of the void, and she's got all this like spooky nightmare night behind her.
If you walk into a comic shop on acid, this is like that cover for you. Like, it's so mean when I say it.
First trippy cover, I'll take it.
It's really, though, then the reason why I bring that up is that you're looking at it and it's kind of very trippy, and it's very out there, and it's very almost cosmetic and cosmos-esque, for lack of a better word. I'm really trying to invent words here. Clearly.
No, it's cool. I got you, man.
I think everybody's getting it where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Where there's going to be a dictionary made of my words for probably next year. I'm going to release that on Kickstarter.
Awesome.
So that you know of all the words I invented on my podcast. But anyhow, and so I think it's a trippy cover, and I think it's awesome. I think it's just very visually cool in that realm, and I think it's also cool that it's just all white background also.
Thanks.
So.
Yeah, I like to make something that looks like it's kind of moving a little bit too. Like all the swirls, I don't plan them out ahead of time. I kind of get like the basic shapes in mind, but then I just kind of turn my brain off and just start making swirls as I'm painting it. And then that way it kind of, nothing really stays in place. Like I hope always looks a little different each time you look at the covers. So. Yeah.
And then there's this cover. And I don't know how many people like history, but this is the history portion of the podcast. And obviously, I think of Troy, and I think of a Trojan horse.
Yep.
And obviously, you know, you could think of parades, you could think of piñatas. A lot of fun stuff could be thought of. And obviously, this is issue 51, so pretty impressive. My Little Pony made it to issue 51.
Yeah.
A cover like this is just awesome. And obviously, Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much we all know it's a party.
Yeah.
It says it right in the cover.
Yeah, this one they wanted a party scene, and I was like, well, toga parties are cool. Oh, also like the whole Trojan horse story is very violent and like not at all My Little Pony, but it'd be kind of cool to make it My Little Pony though. So yeah, I just figured Pinkie Pie would just totally have a Trojan horse of herself just for this occasion. So. And just like the shocked expression on everybody's face too. Except for Rarity and Fluttershy are down. So
it's very, very, very funny in a lot of ways.
actually, this one too, I think I was watching a lot of Spartacus, this on Stars or whatever. So there's definitely Spartacus and his friend. I always called him Macaroni Head with like my friend who I'd watch it with. So that over to the left is totally Spartacus and his little Spartacus friend. And then I think I put, I haven't seen this one in so long. Cutie Mark Crusaders are in there, I think, way, way, way in the back. And that's all yeah, that's all I can kind of pick out. Yeah,
there's a lot of.
It's fun. I love like sneaking characters in backgrounds of stuff. So.
And one of the things about My Little Pony is that there's all these covers that are just fun. Obviously, I know you didn't work on the Abbey Road cover.
No.
But there's an Abbey Road cover. Yeah. There's, obviously a bunch of other things. There's things that they're referencing. There's a lot of things with picnics. And a lot of people have worked on My Little Pony. There's obviously holiday covers. There's Halloween covers. And there's just everything in between. And this is just one of those things where this is obviously cover Bs and Cs and retail, exclusive and 1 in 10s and 1 in 25s. They're a lot of fun. And this is one of those things where it's a lot of fun to do this type of cover. And so, I mean, that's a common theme. And even just throwing it out there because, also it's the audience where I don't know exactly the full audience of who IDW is aiming at. But, if you're a parent walking into the shop with your kid and My Little Pony is going to be relatively safe and you see that cover, you're going to get a chuckle out of it. It's going to put you in the mood and you're going to feel more comfortable from a psychological standpoint. And I don't have kids yet, but obviously I would imagine that if I'm taking, and I have a 7-year-old daughter or son and I see that, I'm going to get a laugh out of it and I'm going to be very comfortable with it. And it's very good on marketing on that front.
Yeah, it's kind of like movies like Shrek always comes to mind, but there's some stuff in Shrek that like as a kid will go right over your head, but the parents will be like, well, I'm forced to watch this movie anyway. Thanks, Shrek people, for putting one in for the parents, like, yeah, a lot of kids movies now. It's just like they know the people making these comics and movies like know that there's an adult that's probably reading alongside. So like, why not kind of throw them a bone, throw them something to enjoy as well. Like everybody who works on the comics is a huge nerd too. So like Andy's a huge nerd. He throws a bunch of horror stuff in there and Magnum PI and MASH things. And there's a very select audience that's going to get that. And, but when they do, it's like, oh my God, these people like give a crap. So it's cool.
And then I want to show obviously this cover as well. Just very, I don't know, was this painted or was this digital?
So it's kind of half and half. It's a painted, and then I went in and my very rudimentary Photoshop skills and sort of kind of messed with a few textures. But the thing is because it was painted, I couldn't get a lot of the colors to pop like I really wanted to. So bringing it into Photoshop, like the Rarity times Pommel at the bottom, that's obviously digital, but like I couldn't get that crisp of a line if I tried like to paint that. And I wanted the look to be very fashiony and very, very clean. So
because this is a very busy cover.
Yeah.
To put it nicely.
Yeah, no, it is.
Very busy cover. Yeah, and I'm sure somebody's looking at this and saying, where does my eye get drawn to?
Right. But then it like keeps you looking at it for a little while too. The colors bring you in and then you're like, what the hell am I looking at? And then, hopefully it makes sense after a little bit.
And that's why I chose it, because to talk about it, because it's a very busy cover. And also at a certain point, you obviously switched over. And what was that like? Because you're painting and then you got to learn Photoshop and you got to learn how to color and how to do a variety of other stuff with Photoshop. Yeah. And drawing, and it's very complicated. And then Photoshop does what Photoshop does, which means it updates every other day.
Yeah.
Cool. So there you go. And
Yeah. I mean, I always kind of like knew really, really basic Photoshop, like not enough to do full covers drawn out in them, but I could like go in and kind of add lines and do little tweaks here and there. Right now, the program I use is Procreate on my iPad, and that is like what I think digital artists should look at a little bit more. It's so intuitive to even a traditional artist. Like the brushes in there, like mesh like actual paint does, whereas Photoshop is very much like airbrush, leaf pattern.
I'm going to ask you a question that has nothing to do with My Little Pony. So what do you use to actually draw on an iPad? Because iPads are beyond interesting. You can record on your podcasts on iPads. I could run this entire thing on an iPad.
Yeah.
I can edit on my iPad. There have been, movies shot pretty much on iPads and iPhones. Now, those movies weren't maybe an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
They were 15 minutes. And it's not an issue of size or anything. It's just that editing an hour and a half long movie on an iPad is like suicide. You will legitimately go crazy. But it's the idea that you could probably shoot an hour and a half movie if you really wanted to.
Yeah, if you took the time to like move everything with your finger. Yeah.
It's the idea though that what do you use? Because I think a lot of people are interested in that as well.
Totally. So it's just an iPad Pro. I think it's not the newest one, but it's like the second most recent one. And I use an Apple Pencil, and I've got like kind of the big one, so I can not have to destroy my eyes more than they already are going. But I have a cool sheet that goes over it too. It's called Paperlike, and it's a company in Germany. It was a Kickstarter for a little bit, and their whole thing was to make an iPad screen have the texture of paper. And what really turned me off from iPads in the first place was just how slick it was. It was like ice skating and painting, and it was terrible. I do know friends who use kind of the those privacy screens, and that gives it a little bit of tooth. But like Paperlike is designed to be like a paper texture for your iPad, and it gives it just enough tooth to like almost even sound like paper when you're using it. So I love those guys. They're great. But yeah, and then I use Procreate, which is a $10 program and amazing. And it's really cool too, because it takes a video of what you're drawing, and you can do time lapses of what you've created. So you can see like from the sketch and things moving around. Like you can do a 30-second one and it looks like chaos is happening, but it's really cool to see sketches that didn't quite work out. You see those get erased. The sketch that doesn't work out, you get that erased. Sketch that does start to work out, and then you kind of see how it builds on from that, and with the color and everything. And it's really cool. And I was really, really resistant to digital for the longest time, because I'm like, ew, well, that's not real art. But shame on me. Like I'm using it almost primarily right now for all my work, and I love it. Like I had a little sit down with my iPad, and I'm like, we're gonna make this work, technology, you scary, scary piece of technology. And I love my iPad. I can get work done sitting outside. I'm not like chained to my desk, which I love traditional painting, but I also like it when it's really nice outside. So being able to have best of both worlds is pretty sweet. Plus like changes are so much easier to make digitally, obviously. So whenever I get a change, I'm not like, oh great, well, not sleeping tonight. It's just like, all right, undo, undo, undo. Cool, send, all done. Like I can go do anything else now, instead of trying to get watercolor and acrylic to cover up a mistake. And resizing in traditional art is just nightmares on nightmares. So yeah, I love my iPad. I've totally changed my tune on the whole thing. I
just bring it up because obviously you made that shift to going from painting to digital, and obviously you do a lot of digital work. And I do want to talk about 5 more My Little Pony covers.
Sure.
And I want to talk about all of them, and I'm going to start showing them because it is the Day of the Dead type stuff. And obviously this stuff is kind of crazy with what it was doing and what you did with it. And it's just a wild, wild cover. That's obviously not Day of the Dead right there. But these are I think 4 of them. And so what was this like doing this set? Because it's a crazy set.
Thanks.
And I think it came out like almost in a week, right?
It came out pretty quick. Yeah, I did them all pretty quick too. It was I remember my editor said we want to do a fiendship series, so all ponies have to have like a cohesive line of covers. So it's like are they going to be cosplaying? Are they going to be in horror movies? Like I was trying to figure out like the one thing that would tie them all together. And I was super into like Day of the Dead and Dia de los Muertos makeup. And it's like, oh, that's really cool because you can add all their little quirks and cutie marks. And like, I think the Rainbow Dash one has some firefly lightning bolts in her.
I'm not clicking there.
Oh, yeah. So in her wings, there's like firefly, which I think was her original pony that was modeled after. But yeah, it was really cool. I remember, I think I did the designs when I was living in Portland, Oregon, and it was like at the Kennedy School bar, and I was in like the boiler room section of it. It's like a little bar in their old school boiler room. And I was just drawing a bunch of ponies, and I'm like, well, I'm already in a dark kind of little area. This really helps kind of come up with sort of these like little spooky designs. But yeah, it was really cool. It was really fun to design that. Like I love fashion design, so I can't sew to save my life. So if I can draw some cool costumes, that holds me over a little bit. Yeah, it was neat. It was really fun once I figured out what I wanted to do. But definitely the hardest part was like figuring out what series I wanted to put them in, I guess. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of stuff with that, and those came out so quickly, where they either came out in like a week or in like in a month or something like that.
Yeah,
and that's a lot to throw out there, and obviously it was a big deal. And well, you know, obviously IDW does stuff like that every once in a while, making it an event with these covers.
Okay.
And 5 of them as well. So obviously really cool, and obviously people, you know, like comic events, and people like things that go together, and this is a big set that you did. And so obviously that's My Little Pony stuff, and then obviously you've done a bunch of other stuff. You've done Napoleon Dynamite covers, and so Napoleon Dynamite is obviously a cult classic movie. People love it. I think you did this cover, which is really funny.
Yeah.
And then you also did the back of it, which is cool too.
Oh, I didn't do that one. No, just the front.
You did only the front, but obviously that is a really funny cover. It's actually up on my Instagram from about maybe 5 months ago. And I just think it's funny because obviously we all know the story of Napoleon Dynamite. He's trying to get Pedro elected against the really cool popular kid, does the dance scene, and now, well, Pedro has been acting up.
Yeah, it was funny.
He's got to go, guys.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's another really early digital one too. So I was still kind of trying to figure out which brushes I liked in this weird digital thing I started diving into. And so that cover actually took me quite a long time to do for how simple it is, but it's definitely a huge learning cover for sure. And then like all the doodles in the background, I tried drawing with my left hand because everything just kind of kept coming out like, sounds so shitty, but too nice. So I'm like, how do I do this? So I tried drawing with my left hand, and that looked too shitty. So there's like kind of I feel a lot of things about this cover.
But it's really funny. It's a funny cover. And that's the whole point, is that obviously you're doing Napoleon Dynamite, and from a marketing standpoint, you know, really selling a cover is that it gets people's attention. And it's funny because everybody knows that Pedro wins, and obviously everybody knows the movie, and they're like, oh wait, there's a Napoleon Dynamite cover, because that book isn't necessarily pulling comic fans in. It's meant to pull in people who are not into comics in a lot of ways. And so obviously that cover is going to make somebody stop and laugh for 5 seconds. And so that's something that's really funny about that cover. And then this is obviously, I think this is a cover you did. That's the second one. And I think you did this one. And there's this one also. And obviously all this stuff. And I think these are all the cover aids, which is reserved for the interior artist. And so what was that like? Because it is very much an honor. It's unspoken in the comic world that typically somebody who's a cover artist might not get a cover A. But when they do, it's a big deal.
Like, yeah, I mean, I get like the the marketing standpoint, because where it's like you want the cover to look like the rest of the book, so it's not like a jarring kind of experience when you're like, oh, okay, it's gonna look like this. Oh God, it looks like this now. And so, but it was really neat. Like I'd always wanted to do a cover A, and I'm very happy with like doing cover Bs and stuff because of all the freedom that came with it. But with cover A, you kind of got to be like, all right, this has to be on model, and there's no room for finagling too much stuff. So, but yeah, they were super open to everything. I think each cover I send in like 4 different designs, like 4 different thumbnails as well. And so all the ones that the editors, like, yeah, totally. Yep. And I found sometimes the one that you don't want to do is the one that you draw in there and you're like, just to fill up space. So what I've learned, and for any comic artists,
I know exactly what you're about to say.
Yeah,
don't draw a thumbnail
that you don't want to do. Yeah, because I can't tell you how many times I'm like, well, I don't want to make it look like I only did this many. I'll just throw in this one here, and then they always pick that one, which is like, but yeah.
To even talk about that, because obviously going into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you haven't done an official Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cover yet, but you were part of a very cool project that was Project 100. And Project 100 took a bunch of artists. I think a few people did double covers for that project. I know Kevin did a double project, which I'm already tipping off what this project is. But it was the idea that you take a bunch of artists, about 100 of them, give or take, blank cover, and say, hey, do something with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the book. And then obviously I think all the proceeds, or a good portion of it, wound up going to, you know, I forget the charity, which is really bad, really bad.
Initiative, I think.
The what?
Was it Heroes Initiative?
Probably.
It was a while ago. I can't remember.
That would probably make the most sense. But then obviously all those covers, I think, then went also to that as well. And so what was this like? Being invited into doing this, you know, pretty much them sending you, I think they sent you a cover to work on. So at least they provided some of the supplies for you. And then also they gave you probably a lot of freedom, because what they wanted in this project is a bunch of people who have worked on it and who haven't worked on it. So here's how we view Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah. And you did April O'Neil. And obviously, you know, I got that image, but I'm going to show that image after you describe it.
Yeah, I wanted to do kind of like a really neat fashion-y April and make her look kind of badass. But yeah, I think I was actually there at IDW, like, because I think they did an event where they had a lot of us drawing on the blank covers there for an event at the studio, the publishing studio company.
And so this is the cover.
Cover.
And obviously this isn't traditional April O'Neil. For those obviously this is a lot more playful. Obviously there's a lot more artistic. You know, it's almost got a little bit of a Punisher vibe to it to some degree. And obviously we have her action, and while she's sort of doing the news, you know, it's not, hey, the fun news. This is sort of like action news.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I kind of like scary fashion sometimes, like a really scary model, like is sometimes really fun to draw. And I wanted her to be really intense instead of just sort of ditzy April O'Neil. Like, I think she could be pretty hardcore when she wants to be. So, yeah, I just wanted to go.
And it's very much a commission piece type thing as well. Yeah. Obviously, you know, this is something that would be picked up at a con, for instance. Or, you know, you go to somebody's table and then, you know, they draw something, and then if you're smart, you get it CGC'd, so it preserves it. That's neither here nor there. But it's the idea that obviously you're doing something for a charity, you get it to work on a character. Obviously, Kevin Eastman's involved and all these top people, and then you're in a book with some of the top people in the comic world. So what is that like? Because obviously it has to be somewhat of an ego boost, but also you're at the table. There's a concept where I interview a lot of people, and interview people who are punching way above my weight. And when I'm speaking to them, and I just had Ralph the Desk go on from Zenoscope, I'm at the table sitting with a lot of people, and it's very cool because that's what this is in a lot of ways as well. So what was that like for you?
It was awesome. I got to meet Kevin, I think, at that event too, and he's from New England as well. So like it was really cool. We talked about
Up in Boston.
Wicked cool, kid. Yeah, it was really fun because like it's out in San Diego, so when you run into somebody from the East Coast, it's just like, oh my god, wicked kid. Cool. Anyways, but yeah, it was cool. I got to see his office too at IDW, and he was just super, super nice. And I kind of had to keep reminding myself, like, oh my god, it's co-creator of Ninja Turtles. He's just a dude, though. Like, and that's the coolest thing is a lot of these professionals are just dudes, just lady dudes. You know, everybody's hopefully chill. If they're not chill, then they suck. But I mean, like, I don't know. And I try to remind myself that too whenever I get kind of starstruck is just like, just be chill, you know, like you can be nervous, but, you know, just know that they're probably nervous too, or they're, you know, overwhelmed or tired or feeling everything that you're feeling as well. So yeah, it's neat. And just because of like conventions and who you run into there, I've met a lot of people that I never expected to meet. I did nerd out over David Tennant, though. That one, my voice did get like 10 octaves higher, and I wish I could redo that whole situation. But he was very sweet. So, yeah.
There's obviously, I enjoy Kevin Eastman. He's been on my other show, and he's great. And apparently I got on his, I guess, press list, and I'm like, man, is this for real? His wife is reaching out to me. Is this actually for real? Are we doing this? Because I don't remember getting on his press list. And I'm like, oh, snap. Yeah, when do you want to do it? It was great. It was the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced, because I'm like, how did I get on your press list? And then people ask me, how did you do it? And I'm like, I have no idea. So
hard work, man, and gumption.
Just apparently I asked, and I like, there's something on his website that I think I signed up for, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna amount to nothing. And then like San Diego is like 3 weeks away. He's like, yo, can I come on your show? I'm like, cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Again, punching above my weight. I know when I'm punching above my weight, and I know when I get lucky.
Yeah. That's a comic artist too. There's that imposter syndrome is like real stuff. Like there's covers and stuff that I've worked on where I'm like, oh God, I'm not anywhere near good enough as that artist. But then you have to remind yourself, like, the reason you were picked is because you're not that artist or you're not that show, you know, like you're offering something different or you're offering like a new perspective. And sometimes that's like,
no, it's just luck for me.
Okay. Luck is also good too. Yeah.
I understand where I stand on it. It's luck completely. I'm not going to lie. I just ask at the right time. I ask a lot of people, and I get lucky.
It's really important too. Yeah.
No skill involved in this. There's nothing like that. You know, it takes skill to write a blank comic book. So on that, the amount of writing to do a blank comic book, guys, tough.
Yeah.
Absolutely tough.
Starting is the hardest part.
You should see the script for it. Oh my God, it's phenomenal.
You can do it.
It's so bad on so many levels. And then obviously, there's a few more books I want to talk about.
Sure.
And obviously, I kind of want to. I'm not too sure which one's going to appear, so that's going to be even better here. So obviously, this, which is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And this is some trippy shit.
Thanks. Yeah, Starpig's rad. It's definitely a 90s kid nostalgia just explosion. And Delilah Dawson is so cool. And it was just really cool to be able to work with her and her characters. And this was another super early digital one where I was still trying to figure everything out.
Trippy. And then this is even more trippy.
Yeah, Lisa Frank.
This is like sugar.
Yep.
Like just pure sugar.
Yeah. Well, it's based on like Lisa Frank. It's the whole like I grew up with Lisa Frank. Like I had stationery, towels, everything I could get my hands on. So when
it's pure sugar. That's what this is. And like you look at it and you're like, oh my God. Like
yeah.
I feel my mouth getting a cavity looking at it.
It's working.
So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's also it's trippy because you got dogs running on rainbows and you're in outer space or sort of on planets and you have aliens doing something in the background and like just next time I ever have friends who ever do acid, this is their gift. so this is their gift. I'll pull it right out there. Here's your gift. Enjoy yourself.
You're welcome.
I'll see you in an hour. Yeah. And then this is the fourth cover, which is a little less trippy, but still pretty trippy. and there's a lot of cool stuff with this one going on, and it's fun and yeah. So obviously, all three of these covers are just trippy.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, that one I kind of did the Bowie pose, and I wanted it to be really 80s. So that's, you know, all the like bright pink and teal to me is just like 80s colors. So that's, plus I love purple. So that whole color scheme I really, really liked. And yeah, I tried to make it as
I know somebody
as I could.
I know somebody who would really love this cover.
Cool.
It's Anthony Green.
Oh, sweet.
Also known as August Gray.
Hey.
Former WWE. He's the retrosexual or alternative AG now. And his entire thing is an 80s vibe. Zumba pants, and then he rips them off. He's got like the, you know, big, almost Gato type shades. He's great. He's great. He comes out to, you know, heaven on earth. Oh, it's brilliant. And he's back on the indies. He's back on the indies, guys. So he's the retrosexual alternative Anthony Green, and he would love that cover. I just know it.
Cool.
And then the final thing, and I know I'm missing a bunch of your career. There's a lot of stuff you've done. And I haven't touched like 1/10 of it, which is really bad on my part.
No, man. It's a lot.
But the last thing I want to talk about is sort of your cover or your comic that you're working on. And I think it's sort of Ghost of
the Ghost, the Owl. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Clearly. Wow. I can't speak today.
No, that's fine.
And so what is that? Because obviously up to this point, you've done a little bit of comic work, but you are very, very, I think you're almost like 95% cover artist.
Yeah.
And you've done a little bit of interiors here and there and some other stuff with comics, but this is your first real doing the art. And obviously you're teaming up with a writer. And so what is that like? Because that's a very different experience. And also it must be nerve-wracking to some degree as well, because up to this point, you've only done one side of the business, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Luckily, I'm really good friends with Franco, who's the writer of it. So luckily, the nervous part, for the most part, was taken away just because he's a really good friend of mine. But I was still pretty nervous because it's like, this is a big project and everything in that book is still hand painted. So it took me about a year to do it, everything.
Also, I would imagine that it must be nerve-wracking as well from just the writing. Is the writer going to be able to be up to par on illustrating? But now everybody knows you as a cover artist, and it's like, you know, is this going to be what everybody expects as well? It must also be out there, because all of a sudden, if I go out and I do a whole different type of podcast, or if I go out and produce a comic book as a podcaster, there's a bunch of people who are going to be expecting something that may or may not live up to it, you know? And so it's very nerve-wracking whenever you enter a new sector or you expand your sectors. And obviously, Franco's probably a very good writer, and I've read pieces of the Owl on the Coast and everything, and the story and where it's going, and it's a cool story. And there's real consequences, and it's a little bit dark, and definitely.
It was too dark for Scholastic, so I want to put that
coming out of Salem, right? Let's put it that way. It's a good way to put it. That should be right on the back of the book.
I want a full quote.
Anime Comics coming out of Salem is this book.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because like Franco actually came to me to do the cover or do the book, because he's like, I want to do a cover. Oh gosh, I can't. I want to do a book with you. He's like, what do you like? And I'm like, I like owls and ghosts. And he's like, cool, give me a few months. And then he like came back with a script, and he's like, I'm super serious about doing this. And then
I mean, in my defense, Scott Snyder ruined owls for me, but that's a different discussion. So I despise owls.
Oh no, I love
because they kick other birds out of their nests. They hunt. And some owls are very, very cute, okay? But other owls are just nasty looking. And then after the Court of the Owls, them hanging out in almost the crawl space on like the 13th floor of all the Wayne buildings in Gotham, I have no respect for owls anymore. And I'm so happy Batman fixed that problem.
Oh my God.
And Alan was phenomenal with everything, and that, you know, Scott started with James Tylan like the fourth. But yeah, I'm very anti-owl. I also failed at Hogwarts twice on that exam. No. I don't want to talk about that either. But anyway, you gave that one to me like
I know,
a
yeah.
mile out. You gave it to me a
You're
mile out.
welcome. My gift to you.
That's gonna be cut up into an Instagram post. Why Andrew hates owls. It's gonna go right up.
Examples.
There's a Facebook behind it too, because it'll be the best selling point for this entire interview. But anyway, but in all seriousness and joking aside, what was this like? Because obviously it's dealing with a girl and sort of ghost girl. Nobody knows exactly, and I'm trying to avoid ruining certain things. And then an owl sort of befriends her, and well, the forest isn't exactly thrilled with what's about to go down or what could potentially go down, and there's a lot of things, and then there are consequences for what happens. And so what was this like, even just taking that idea, him writing it, and then you saying, okay, I got to paint it, and then this is just some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Things look, and also it's just like really, really like blended colors and obviously very painted and a lot of art, and even just having a story that has a lot of gravity to it and consequence to it, because there is consequences in this book.
Yep. Yeah, it was awesome because first Franco like gave me kind of what he was envisioning each page to look like. He's like, these are really basic ideas I have, but he's like, please do not stick to all these, like do whatever you want. But so it was kind of cool to have that bridge because he's also an artist. So it was a nice bridge from writing into the art that I kind of felt that he would want to see, and what I was able to visualize from the words too. Because sometimes it's like, it's really scary when you get not enough stuff and then you're stuck trying to figure out what to do. But he gives kind of like a really good beefy sandwich of ideas, and then you can go along with that. But it was cool. There's a lot in that book. There's a lot of hidden stuff in there. There's a lot of like stuff that I like the owls in that one that you show. They're very Egyptian inspired, and I really like Egyptian art.
This one, right?
Yeah. So I try to keep them really, really Egyptian looking because they're Parliament of owls, and I wanted them to be kind of ethereal and scary. And I think Egyptian art can be that, like very scary and ethereal. And but
this one is a little bit different style, where this is definitely a little more action. You know, obviously a lot more movement. You know, it almost is very much ego-like in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I wanted to, you know, with this book too, push some of the scariness. Like there's pages where the villain's getting his face torn up by an owl, like, because that's, I know when I was a kid, that would have fascinated me to see a book that would have treated me like, you know, not just a kid where, oh, we'll cover up all this and cover it with something pretty, but like, here's some real consequences. This guy was awful, and this owl is trying his best as a little tiny owl to save his friend. So yeah, he's gonna go for the eyes, you know. But doesn't really gel with a lot of people who want to give it to their kids.
And also the thing is that this is very much, and I know when I use this word, people automatically assume something, but this is very much an adult book. It's not a kid book in a lot of ways.
It's an all ages book.
But I think it's stepping outside of the realm of My Little Pony, where I don't think Scholastic is going to be like, hey, you want this book?
Yeah.
Where obviously it is somewhat a little bit outside, and it definitely hits more of a niche audience that might be a step or two off the beaten path, for instance, or a regular path. And that's a very important step in a lot of people. You know, obviously I've gone down this route in this podcasting world, and there are interviews that I've done that have gone down that, and it's important for growth. And even just sometimes stories, you know, from a position cannot be told in the most pleasant ways, or, you know, you need to have an all-age book, for lack of a better word here.
Yeah.
So what is that like? Because obviously, you know, it opens up doors in a lot of ways.
I mean, like, for me, like, I just felt it was more of myself in a book. Like I like spooky, dark, horror, scary. Like, it's not even just like the scary stuff. Like, I like the mystery behind something that looks like it should be scary, you know, and maybe it's not necessarily going to be a nightmare. It's just not super bright, you know, and to have a kid's book kind of, or an all ages book, introduce kind of that duality, I always thought was really, really neat. Instead of just like, you're a kid, here's your sugar, and that's it. That's all you get, because we want to protect you. But it's like, then you, like, to a point, I get. want to let that kid also kind of experience like, not like Freddy versus Jason or anything, but something kind of like Over the Garden Wall, you know, has some very spooky, to me, it's like
Or Alice in Wonderland.
yeah, exactly. Like that has some scary stuff in it too. I mean, like a lot of early Disney movies have some pretty scary stuff in it. And as a kid, I was just like, whoa, this is great. Like I feel so adult, you know? And same with like Batman the Animated Series. Like that was gritty as hell and like real dark stuff in there. And I loved it. And I didn't feel like I was just being spoon-fed like ice cream. Like, shut up, kid, here's your Barney, you know, or whatever.
You're not watching Adventure Time.
Oh, I love Adventure Time. I need to finish it, but me and my boyfriend
Or Rick and Morty. Or Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty's good. We're watching Flapjack right now, and Flapjack's great. Like that's a real good balance between like terrifying and like sweet, and it's just where my mind likes to live. So, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of draw and make what I want to buy and what makes me happy, you know, as much as possible, and it serves me well so far, so I'm just gonna kind of keep doing that, I guess. Whether I alienate people or not, you know.
And then obviously, I mean, that sort of, as I stated, you know, I've only tackled like less than 1/10 of your career, but obviously that is something that is, I guess, your latest project. And I think you have some stuff coming out, but
yeah.
obviously I know that certain things can't be spoken about. Certain
NDAs, yeah.
certain people to draw stuff. You know, I know Zenescope, and I keep bringing up Zenescope. They allow their artists to do a lot of drawing live. Certain other companies don't for various reasons. Obviously, story reasons. They don't want things to be ruined. They don't want titles to be ruined, which is completely understandable because obviously things change, and the comic world is very much rapidly moving, very fast in a lot of ways. So obviously, I'm not going to pressure you too much on that. But I do want to talk about conventions.
Yeah.
Because you go to a lot of them. Obviously, My Little Pony stuff. Obviously, a lot of IDW books. And well, I guess for the last 18 months, 20 months, cons have been crazy. Obviously, COVID is far from over right now. I think I'm optimistic, and I think we're in a better place than we've ever been in, but it's still a disaster. For those who don't know, I'm a big anime fan, and I live in Connecticut. So Anime NYC, I'm not going before anybody asks, but they basically said, hey, we're going to need vaccination cards, and you're wearing masks, and it's in the Javits Center. And I think that's either a month after or a month before New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on. Obviously, MegaCon's this weekend, and we're about to see. I mean, I'm a big wrestling fan. For those who don't know, Ring of Honor has a big show called Death Before Dishonor, and they just moved it out of Florida, which was going to take place, to Philly. So clearly, there's something going on. And so I don't know how you view everything, because I know you do a lot of stuff, and we're going to get into what you do at cons.
Yeah.
But where are you feeling about all that? Not to get too controversial, but I know that you've been affected by it.
Yeah. Not having conventions was for a lot of artists is a huge cut to our income, because doing commissions and, you know, like selling prints and selling anything really at a convention is really helpful, because comics do not actually pay very much. So it was a really good supplemental income. And so, you know, with all the virtual cons, that's helped. Like Comic-Con at home was neat, but, you know, we're seeing fractions of what we would make at an in-person con. But at the same time, we're all real frail, nerdy comic artists who are putting ourselves into a petri dish every time. And we get like just con plague anyway. So, you know, while it's really hard, like I am signed up for New York Comic Con, but I'm
not trying to scare you.
No, I know. I am where I'm at right now.
I'm not going. I'm the first person where right now economically it's not on my cards.
Yeah.
Also, there are covenants in my personal life that make sure that I will be perfectly fine in the long run, because again, you know, I understand that well, sure, going to a con's fun. You know, sometimes you have to take care of personal covenants first.
Absolutely.
And I have an entire different show where I talk about comic book investing and talk about money in comics.
Yeah.
So I am the guy for this. And I'm actually going to be on somebody's show in about a week and a half talking about this very thing.
Thanks.
But one of the things is that I'm viewing this as a down year, where to me, it is obvious there are too many abnormalities in play. And also, one of the things that I'm concerned about, because I see it and somebody wants to go to a con who just shot me a message on Facebook saying, hey, could you buy some of my art? I want to go to this con and sell and I get a table, and I said to him, a lot of collectors, a lot of people are now selling off their collections because they're scared of what's going to happen in a year and a half from now. And then on top of that, a lot of people, I have friends at Constant, people were just there getting what they needed for their collections and nothing extra.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of concern in this space where, okay, the con's going on. How many people actually have money? Because, well, stimulus checks are not in effect. Unemployment's running out. Whether you started, a month ago, a month later, a month early, that's running out. It's not, there's a lot of stuff going on. And then on top of that, I mean, look, I'm in Connecticut and COVID's big. I know like 9 people who have gotten COVID who had the vaccination.
Yeah.
And this is insane.
Yeah.
And so I'm in Connecticut. I don't know where you are.
I'm in New Hampshire, man. I'm not too much further away from you.
but I'm legitly maybe 90 miles, 100 miles outside of New York City.
Yeah.
I am not that far from New York City.
Yeah.
It is evident to me that this is going to be a big issue, and New York Comic Con could very well be canceled.
I mean, I'm expecting it. I haven't made any like lodging plans or anything. Usually by now I'd have like hotel, transport, everything figured out, and now it's just like, I don't know. I don't know, because it's like I'm vaccinated, and like even if I do get kind of sick or whatever, like I have some immediate deadlines that I can't be sick through. So it's like I kind of have to
that.
Yeah.
The idea that what we're finding out now, and not to get too political, vaccinations aren't as effective as we were told.
Better than not being vaccinated, though. But
I mean, I'm vaccinated, and I know 9 people who have been vaccinated. Now I'm like saying to myself, like, you're getting it, and that there's a whole new variant out there, and then there's a secondary variant, and then on top of that, it just becomes like, I don't want to be around 100,000 people.
Yeah, it's
So
scary.
even if they're all vaccinated.
Yeah.
Because let's be realistic, people are going to have the flu.
Yep.
People are going to have the sniffles.
Yep.
People are going to have, what if the people have measles?
Sure.
I'm not even joking.
I mean, at this point, like, I don't even know some of the sicknesses I've gotten at convention. It's just con plague.
I've never gotten sick at a con.
Oof, it sucks.
But I'll explain. So I do fan panels. I get what I want to get done at a convention. I don't mingle with people. And then I am out of the con the latest at 8 or 9 o'clock. If I have an 8 o'clock panel that I'm doing, I don't go hang out till 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not going in exhausting myself. I'm in a hotel room by myself or with one other person that I went to the con with, and I spend more money, and we actually act, and I'm well rested because I'm there from business. It's not, I enjoy myself, but I'm not the one getting sick, because guess what? I'm getting 8 hours of sleep every night at a convention.
Yeah.
I'm not, because it's a business play for me.
Yeah.
It's a networking play for me. It has nothing to do where I don't want to be sitting at a bar till 2 in the morning, hang out with a bunch of anime fans. Not that I don't like you people. If you want to talk to me outside my panel, I'm more than happy to do that for an hour. But I'm not here to go party.
Right. No, you're a professional, so like you can prioritize that, and it serves you well the next day.
I want to watch anime in my hotel room and watch that, like, or read actually the graphic novel I bought, or figure out what I need to get done the next day. This is business for me because I'm a comic book investor. I'm picking up what I need. So, but again, I don't want to be around 100,000 people. It's expensive. Hotels are going up, and I'm just viewing it as a down year.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was that hope, and things turned around really quickly.
Exactly.
So
really smart. I would go call my bookie and I would bet against it. And I'm kidding.
No, I know. It's just like
guys,
Murphy's Law all day, every day.
I want everybody to know I'm kidding. I'm going to call 5 of my bookies. Anyway, I digress. Before, again, I get you or me canceled or both of us canceled. Because clearly clearly that's the direction we're going down. But obviously, that's how I feel about it. Is that I'm not anti-con. I just think it's going to be a disaster, and I just think that it's going to be what is known as a shit show. That's my opinion. And I'm just saying, there's just too many uncertainties in my world, and I'm not producing a product. I have nothing to sell except myself. And all I want people on my panel to come like my podcast. Like really, that's what I want. And that's the other thing too, is that if you cut my room down from 250 to 120, that's a huge loss. And so that's how I view it, is that I am uncertain of where it's going. Not to mention that I can fake a vaccination card in an hour in reality. So how are you going to enforce that? Not to mention, I don't even know where my vaccination card is.
Yeah, I took a picture of mine just for that exact reason.
I'm sure I have a picture of it somewhere, but it's the idea that off the top of my head, if you said, Andrew, where's your vaccination card? You had a gun to my head. I would say, you're going to have to kill me. In which
under my arm.
I couldn't, tell you. And I think that's how I feel about it. And so I don't know how you feel about it, but obviously I do want to talk about something else really quickly.
One day at a time, man.
A bunch of stuff at cons. I know that obviously selling prints, selling comics. I know that obviously you sign books at cons. I don't know if CGC has ever done a private signing with you, but that's always out there, and people get stuff CGC'd. Some people charge, some people don't. Obviously, panels are big. Also, I'm sure that you have some comps, and that sometimes people have 1 in 10 books that are granted to them, and obviously that gets sort of distributed out. And so, but also one of the things that artists get to do that writers don't get to do is commissions, and 11 by 17s. Actually, that's really big.
Yeah, I stopped doing those a long time ago.
I'm sure you would do it for the right price, but anyhow.
Possibly, yeah.
But what is it? 7 by 11? I want to say is a piece of paper.
8.5 by 11, yeah, that's that, or 9 by 12s are really common.
I'm not an artist.
Nah, those numbers are burned into my memory. So
I think what a lot of people wind up doing is either 9 by 12s, 8 by 11. I think you said, or 8.5 by 11. But also what I like to do is I like to do comic blank covers. Obviously, if there's a blank My Little Pony, obviously I'm interested in that. Or if there's a blank, Gem cover, or a blank Rick and Morty, obviously you've done stuff. Or if there's just a blank Batman cover, for lack of a better word, I might say, hey, I like your art. Can you do, Batman your way? Or could you do My Little Pony Batman style, for instance? And so I know that a lot of people live on commissions. I know there's artists who go to a con and they work for 2.5 days straight on commission work. And they make bank, don't get me wrong, but obviously I know that's something that I think you offer that, right?
Yeah, I did. Oh man, but I've toned back commissions at shows quite a bit, because like you were saying, like staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, that's what a lot of comic artists are doing, trying to work, but then you're exhausted the next day and you miss out on all that networking as well too. So it's like a real balance that you kind of almost have to strike, where it's hard to do commissions at the table because you want to talk to people, but then like shows end at like 8 or 9. So then that's when you usually go get food. And by the time you're starting to draw, it's like 11 already and you're exhausted from a full day. Commissions are hard on artists. So anybody getting commissions, just be nice to your artist that you're getting the commission from, because we are exhausted. So.
I don't know. My first commission did really well for my artist.
Yeah.
And he got almost like 7,000 Instagram likes on it.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
It was my idea, and then I knew exactly what I was doing, and I'm really good at booking covers.
Well, nice.
But I digress right there. So obviously, that's something that you offer, and then I'm going to take a leap of faith here, because I know people like getting stuff CGC. So I got my commission CGC because I want to preserve it. And so obviously that's something that people do as well. And the rules for that, for those who want to know, you get CGC first, and then you pick up your commission, because it's an unspoken rule that CGC counts it, because they know they can't witness the entire thing being drawn. So and if you sign the commission, but it's picked up and CGC witnesses it, it's treated like as if it was witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the rules on that, which is super helpful. And I know because I asked CGC. So obviously that's big. And then so obviously, but in the meanwhile, support artists, super important.
Yeah.
Right now is the time to do it if you got the extra money. And so on that note, where can people find you on Twitter, find your website, actually buy stuff off your website, buy My Little Pony art, because I know you got at least 1 or 2 pieces up.
I think I have 1 or 2 left even. Like that's all I have left is whatever's on my store right now.
And then also buying the Owl book, a bunch of prints. And then I know that you're probably going to be putting some new stuff up, new prints and other things up eventually. And obviously, that's just some original art and then some other cool stuff with it. And so obviously, where can people support you? And then obviously, do you have Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, any of that? Because those are very important too. I mean, I have a Buy Me a Coffee.
Yeah.
So,
I think I have a coffee. I totally forgot about it. So I have my website, which pretty much just branches out to all these things. So it's just Sara, Sara Richard.com. And that has links to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I have like 3 different Instagrams right now because I have a webcomic that is kind of on hiatus right now. But I will get back to you. I've just been like tsunami of deadlines, so I haven't been able to touch it. But I also have a store. There's a store link on my website that you can get the book signed from me. There's original art. There's pins. Like I've designed a bunch of enamel pins, which I love doing. Those are really, really fun. Prints. I should have a bunch of new prints for this fall. Like I was planning on doing a bunch for New York Comic Con. But so So this Saturday, Free Comic Book Day, I'm going to be at Merrimack Comics and Games. So I'm going to do just like $1 print, all my old prints. I'm just trying to do a complete clear out of everything. Yeah. So so that way I can do kind of like a whole new thing. Like I want to come back to whenever cons are a thing again. I want like a whole reinvented new thing. But anyway, I do have a book that will be coming out soon. It's in previews right now. So it's called The Dead Hand Book. And that's up for Diamond orders right now. So if you guys want to ask your local comic shop about that, that would help me out a ton.
Or just go on Midtown and just do it that way.
Yeah. It's coming out through SourcePoint, which is another awesome company. SourcePoint Press. Those guys are awesome. But yeah, other than that, doing a lot of illustration stuff for Simon & Schuster. So I've got links on all my social media to the Greek mythology book I did. I'm doing a follow-up mythology cocktail book right now. It's a lot. It's been a lot. It's been a lot of stuff. I've got a DC thing that I can't say what it is. So there's that as well.
And then I'm sure you got a bunch of covers coming out. I'm sure IDW is going to be hitting you up again at some point.
Hopefully.
And obviously you got a lot of other stuff coming out. So and the way covers work is that sometimes things are booked 6 months in advance. Sometimes they're booked 3 months in advance. Sometimes things just pop up. And then also, with the way everything's going in the comic world, everybody who's mainstream goes indie. Everybody who's indie is going mainstream. So you never know where somebody's going to pop up.
Everybody's dabbling, crisscrossing right now. It's like you get people who did Sugar are now doing Bats and Vampires and crisscross that. And, it's cool. I think this whole thing has given artists a real opportunity to kind of experiment and otherwise we wouldn't have been able to if it was just like another year of conventions after another year of convention. So silver lining, I guess. It's going to be really cool to see what your favorite artists are going to have done during this time and get commissions from them too. Like, please support comic artists. A lot of them are taking commissions. I'm not taking commissions right now, but I have a lot of friends who are comic artists who just check their social media and send them a message. You'll be surprised. They'll be like, yes, I will draw your dog for you, which I love drawing dogs. So.
And so obviously I've been saying this and I'm going to continue to say it, you have to support indie and what that means. And also you got to support mainstream and you got to support what you like right now more than ever. I said it all of last year. I did 90 interviews in 2020. I am over 100 for this year. And one of the things is you have to support indie. What that means is that you have to buy indie. You have to buy prints, books, prints, pick up people's books if they're selling them on their website, or if they have something in comicsology, actually buy it digitally. If they got a Kickstarter running, they got anything running, that's big. Also, follow people on social media. It goes a long way. Follow, because a follow, obviously is engagement, commenting on people's Twitter, saying, oh man, just read this book, thought it was great. Oh man, your cover for My Little Pony is savage. Probably don't use that word. Actually use, oh my God.
I loved it. If I had a savage cover, I'd be like, nope.
But having said all that, all jokes aside, it goes a long way. Also, retweeting goes a huge way. Liking Facebook pages, sharing things from a page onto your feed, because again, you might not know who's looking at your page. Same thing with Twitter. There's been plenty of people, and even this show, I've had people on where I was interviewing somebody and goes, oh man, I didn't know this Kickstarter existed. And then people got 4 or 5 backers, and it was $20 a backer, and that's $100 for their Kickstarter. It goes a long way because somebody shared it. And so it matters, and it's super important. I get money's tight. People are in different economic positions, obviously, but sharing is free. Social media is free, and it's just as important. And also just commenting on somebody's thing, saying, oh man, really enjoyed, this number 38, or this, really enjoyed your Napoleon Dynamite cover, or I didn't even know that you did that cover. Wow, I didn't even realize it. And just commenting on that on Facebook or Twitter goes a huge way, because it lets somebody know that what's good. So obviously, on that note, I would ask you about witches, but I don't think it's a good topic. That's a different discussion. I've been waiting to use that one. It was in my notes on my sheet here. I'll blame the writer, which is me. But on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Great. Well, we're going to make it through. That's my final word. We got this. Stay in communication with your friends and your family. Be good people. And be awesome. Just be nice. That's all I got.
I don't think I could have said that any better myself. I think that is a wrap.
Cool.